Bert up there in line?
Yeah, Burt's now.
Huh?
Burt Reeves.
In the line?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's the ranking guy, isn't he?
Right, he's a
All right.
and he was standing up there.
All right, let's get started. Good morning. Good morning. Okay, we are getting there and making some progress. Mr. LaHood, what have you got?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everybody. I'm here to present for the second day committee substitute to House Bill 374. This is a very responsible bill that's been thoroughly vetted by all the stakeholders. The Department of Community Health has spoken into it and helped us with the language. And it simply, it just more clearly defines the conditions under which a certified medication aide working within an assisted living community can administer liquid morphine to a hospice patient. This is a practice that hospice is training non-medical family caregivers to do every day. And so these certified medication aides within assisted living communities are very capable of doing it under the strict oversight established in this bill. I'll be glad to take any questions.
You have no questions.
Thank you.
Representative Washburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and ladies and gentlemen of the committee. I'm here today to present House Bill 396, and actually a substitute of that out of the Judiciary Committee. It is on your blue sheet under modified open rule, the last item. This is a simple bill. It deals with the current law which prohibits an individual transferring real estate to defraud a security interest or to prevent enforcement of a security interest. This bill simply adds some language to protect an unsecured creditor as well. And it makes that a misdemeanor if somebody transfers real estate to someone without their permission or knowledge. And I'll be glad to take any questions.
You have no questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The former birthday boy, Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I survived yesterday, so glad to be here. I actually have two bills on the calendar, Mr. Chairman. On the first page, HB 300, it is a name change, changing the name, the current name, Continuing Care Retirement Communities, to Life Plan Communities. The organizations that this affects looked at this, have been looking at it for a long time, and some of the, I guess, the younger generation coming up, they didn't really want a name of a facility or where they were living saying continuing care retirement. They kind of like the life plan community. Sounds a little easier. So I present that to you for your consideration. And you know, I'm just hoping either one of those communities will take me down the road. You know, so and soon, hopefully take me soon. Any questions on that one?
This is probably one of the more significant pieces of legislation we'll handle this year.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Leader Burns.
Mr. Chairman, what do you mean down the road?
Oh,
Didn't you have a birthday yesterday?
Yeah, well, I'm heading down the road anyway. I am. I'm on a dirt road in Harris County. But no, I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman. And then the other one, I come back to you one more time with that HB 302. A couple of questions were asked yesterday. Communities do have the opportunity to pass property maintenance codes where they can kind of judge what properties look like in neighborhoods. And Ms. Representative Tankersley's question about the coast and vinyl siding, FEMA has put out a report, and it's been on their books, on their website. It talks about installation of the vinyl siding in high winds area and all the testing that they've done there. So just want to present that to you. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Chairman Martin.
Mr. Chairman, isn't it true? I don't belabor the point again today, but I have the same objections. I don't think the Constitution's changed since yesterday to today, or our ability to regulate what goes on in our local cities. And I appreciate the gentleman. I understand he's isn't it true? I appreciate the gentleman. I understand what he's trying to do, but I still, object to the idea that we think we're hundreds of miles away from some of these communities, and we know more about what they want than the people that they elect and touch every day. Isn't that true, Mr. Chairman?
I'm sure the gentleman believes that to be true. Leader Burns.
Gentlemen, yield for a question. I do have a question, a little more serious than how old you are.
Yes, sir.
Is there anything in this legislation that challenges the structural standards that are put in place for safety codes and to ensure the safety of our citizens as far as the home building industry from a standpoint of the state statute or the federal statutes in those and in those most restrictive zones in hurricane zones? Is there anything that challenges that or changes any of those?
No, sir, it's not. It's purely aesthetics. The items listed on the first page are the aesthetic items that this bill speaks to as far as color of homes, how your rooms are located, your floor plan, things of that nature. Nothing structurally.
You have no other questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. I appreciate your consideration on HB 300 and HB 302.
Representative Donahue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're under modified structure, HB 193, third one down under the header. This is a substitute for HB 193, LC 36, 38, 92. My mother's calling. I would take that, but I apologize for that. She really is. She's probably want to make sure I behave. This is a savings bill. Anybody would like to talk to her? That would be great. She would have a stroke, but no, hopefully it's nothing terrible.
Wait a minute, Representative.
Just lost my whole thought there.
Okay, go ahead.
I do love my mom. You're right. She's the best cooking person in this world. Okay, let's back up there. That was LC 363892S by substitute. And what we were doing, this is one that I want to first clarify something to Representative Al Williams. Al, I have a toaster that is putting a W in gold on one side. On the other side, it will say the best day of my life. So I want to make sure you understand you'll get a toaster. This is practically a savings bill, and we went and explained it last week. It's voted out of the House twice, unanimous. The line changes was to clarify transparency, which we want to do, is 37, 38, 39, and 40. And it's just making sure with that transparency, if we can put our head around a CD and look at the same procedure, I think that would be the best way to look at it. And we're just trying to encourage people to save. No risk whatsoever. You can't lose a dollar. Any questions?
You have no questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Petrie.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning. I bring to you again for the second time House Bill 202. This bill is real simple. It asks the department to do something they have already recognized to me in conversations with me is a good idea. They already have much more specific data on individuals that are criminally in this country and then commit crimes on Georgians, then are adjudicated and then placed in our correctional facilities. All of that data and the specifics is already on the website. What I'm asking them to do to make it transparent for the people is to aggregate a list like the one I placed on your desk yesterday so that you have an aggregated list not of individuals, but of crimes committed and how many there are. And so they believe this is a good idea. They've actually already agreed to go ahead and add this to their website. What I'm trying to do is to make sure we have it in statute so that that transparency will be there going forward from today forward and into the future. That's very simply what House Bill 202 does, Mr. Chairman. And any questions, I'm glad to answer them.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Why do we need this?
Sir?
Why do we need this?
Well, that's a very good question. I hope I'll give you a good answer. So we have, unfortunately, in Congress, whose duty it is to deal with the issue of illegal immigration, the inability by both parties in Congress to do anything to deal with this problem. So in Georgia, in this body, all of us that are legislators are very limited to what we can do. But what we can do is make sure that the people that we represent recognize the degree to which the issue impacts their lives daily. And so when you look at that list that I'm asking to be aggregated, there's 1,505 today violent and sex offenders in Georgia correctional facilities who murdered, raped, killed, kidnapped, child molested Georgia citizens on that list. And so the people can look at that list and have complete transparency, and they can look at that and say, that's a big deal, or they may say that's not a big deal. But right now, that data is not available to them. That list that I presented on your desk is something we can get as legislators, but is not available to the average citizen. And that's where the whole conversation began with the commissioner 2 years ago. I asked for a list so I would understand the degree this issue was impacting society. I could get it, but the average citizen couldn't get it. And all I want is for that data to be transparent and posted on the website, and then people can make up their own minds about how they need to deal with Congress, who are the only folks that can really deal with this issue. But 1,505 inmates is a lot of money on our budget, and it's a lot of human tragedy in 1,505 violent and sexual crimes. That's the best answer I can give you, Mr. Chairman.
Leader Trammell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the gentleman, I looked at what was on the desk yesterday.
That's correct.
And is that what you're proposing, to ask them to publish what you put on the desk yesterday?
Pretty much. The department will, yes, it is a list of ICE detainers in Georgia correctional facilities. That is correct.
And, Mr. Chairman, if I might ask one other question. Well, if we're going to do that, why don't we just aggregate all the data and publish it in so that we can see what a percentage is, rather than single out individuals in an effort to inflame public opinion against a group based on their citizenship or non-citizenship status?
Well, I want to answer that question. First, if you'll look on line 15, you will notice it says, with regard to the total population in confinement. So I have asked them to do that, and as I stated in the subcommittee, this is 3% of our inmates. I made it clear in my first sentence to the subcommittee that this issue, this population, was a small subset of our inmate population. That is absolutely true, and that is why I have language that asks for what you're speaking to. Having said that, I want to make sure you understand this. Those 1,505 crimes that you saw on that list, I don't have it in front of me now, none of those had to happen. We can't do anything about our own native-born or U.S. citizen violent criminals except incarcerate them. But those 1,505, if the federal government was doing their job, would never have happened. But the answer to your question is right there on line 15 and 16, sir.
Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and gentlemen. Well, I understand your passion for what you're doing. I live in an area, is it not true, that joins an agriculture area, Onions, where we have a whole lot of inmates, a whole lot of folk coming in to work. I know the sheriffs from all the surrounding counties, and this is to the chairman's question. I have never had a sheriff to tell me it's a problem that they don't have this information. and I know them, and we talk, and I see them, and I'm still, the question cries out for why do we need this legislation?
Okay. Well, Representative, you know, I can't speak to the sheriffs, although I will tell you that we passed House Bill 452 2 years ago, which made sure that this information is sent to our sheriffs when individuals are released after being held in Georgia correctional facilities, so they are actually already getting this information. This is about transparency to the people who may or may not, you may not be interested. The question is, do you believe that the people of Georgia have a right to see this aggregated data? It's really that simple, sir.
Representative Bodie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Representative, do you realize by publishing this on a website that this could inflame inmates and possibly cause race riots inside of our Georgia penal institutions?
Sir, with all due respect, that's the most absurd question I've ever heard.
No, it's
this list. Have you looked at the list?
Well, no,
this list does not include any
What you just said was very
individual's name.
disrespectful.
Whoa, stop.
Yes.
Both of you.
Yes.
Let him answer the question. We're not going to argue.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Representative. Here's the list. It is nothing more than a list of the number and the offenses of ICE detainers in Georgia prisons. How could that inflame anyone?
Because you are singing.
No, stop.
Yes.
We're not gonna argue.
Yes.
We're going to have questions and answers.
So, Mr. Representative, do you not feel like this list that you are aggravating is singling out a certain class of people?
Representative, I do not, because if you had taken the time to look at the list.
And I did.
Say again?
I did.
I'm glad to hear that. What you will discover is the only singular thing you can find in this population is that they're here illegally. They're from you wouldn't believe the number of Germans. My name happens to be German. You'd be amazed at the number of Germans, some of which committed violent crimes in Chatham County, where I live, are on this list. The only thing singular about this list is that these are individuals that were here illegally, which is another matter. This bill is not about immigration, which is what the other side continues to try to do. This bill is about public safety. These individuals are here illegally and then subsequently commit a violent crime on Georgia citizens. That is the only thing that is singular about them, sir.
Are you?
All right, we're going to wrap this up. One more question, Mr. Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Peachy, I just have a series of questions, if you'll yield for just a few, if that's okay.
Please.
Wouldn't you agree, and I think and most of us would, that any time that we can make our system of government and the functions of state government more transparent to the citizens of Georgia, that should be viewed as a good thing and a nonpartisan thing?
I would have always believed that to be true, that people would want transparency in public safety. Yes, sir.
And isn't it true that this measure is not aimed at just a number of illegals that may be in Georgia, but we are talking about people who are here illegally who have also committed some of the most heinous crimes that could be committed on Georgia soil against Georgia citizens?
Mr. Whip, that is accurately the case. My issue is not immigration. I actually am as a large employer, I am an advocate for a vigorous immigration system. I wish Congress would do the job and get it right so we could continue to have people that my good friend Al Williams speaks about, with my part of the world as well, and that we would continue to have the ability to bring people here legally. But when people come here, and because we have a failed system and we haven't done the right job to vet people and they commit violent crimes, the question is, do people have a right to know about it? I think they do. And indeed, the specifics on these individuals are already on the website. All I'm doing is asking to aggregate the data.
And one final question, because I think this is important. Nowhere in this bill, isn't it true, that any of this data would be divided up by anyone's racial status?
Absolutely not, or any other factor other than the fact that they were here illegally and committed a violent or sexual crime.
No demographic outside of two things. They're here illegally, you've committed a crime, and you have never interjected race into this conversation, and that was done by the minority party this morning.
That is correct, which is
Thank you.
customary, sir.
All right, having heard your third final question, we're going to move on to members. Chairman Efstration.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a series of bills. First is HB 239, Modified Open Rule, first page, HB 239. This is the enabling legislation for the Georgia Business Court. Voters of the state approved the constitutional amendment last November, and this is the ins and outs of how the Georgia Business Court would work. Next bill, third time I've asked for it, HB 234, the Anti-Human Trafficking Response Act. That's a modified structure rule. Third up from the bottom, HB 234. Final bill, first time asking for it, is under structured rule on the second page, HB 426. This bill fixes a constitutional issue with Georgia's hate crime statute.
Chairman Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the first page, last bill under modified open, HB 396, the bill that Representative Washburn requested today, this fixes a problem that we discovered with persons inappropriately and fraudulently transferring title to property to others, and I'd appreciate your consideration.
Chairman Stevens. I'm sorry. Mr. Lumsden.
Mr. Chairman, under modified open rule, House Bill 279, ninth from the top. This is a bill dealing with off-duty employment and with sworn enforcement officers of the Department of Revenue. Throughout the various departments of state government, there are a number of departments that have as part of their structure post-certified officers in uniform with marked or unmarked vehicles. Many departments, such as the State Patrol, the GBI, and the DNR, have language in state law that permits off-duty security work by their officers subject to the approval of their director and authorizes the use of their state vehicle and uniform. While there are a number of departments with post-certified officers, each department must have the language in code in order for their officers to be able to do the security work off-duty. This bill simply adopts the language used by the other departments that authorize this practice and applies it to the post-certified officers of the Department of Revenue. Comes as a request from the officers and has the full support of the Department of Revenue. That's the bill.
Mr. Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm asking for two bills, both under modified open rule. The first is HB 242, about halfway down the list. This is a bill dealing with the Massage Therapy Association, or actually their board. This bill was brought by their board to help combat illicit activity in this state we all have seen in the press and very much aware of. It adds liability insurance, requirement for liability insurance, site inspections with statutory standards, criminal background checks, has been vetted by the Secretary of State's office. These people are licensed. They hold a license, a state license, and many of them hold a national license. It's people that we in the healthcare field actually refer patients to for therapeutic massage. I actually use them myself for my back. I'm tired of taking Flexeril, and I'm tired of writing Valium for people with myofascial pain syndrome. So this is a good bill, and I hope the body will consider this. Next bill is HB 253. It deals with occupational therapists. It modernizes their language. It puts into their language telecommunication health. It expressly addresses licensure and examinations. It has also been vetted by the medical health providers and the Secretary of State's office, and I also ask for this favorable consideration. Thank you.
Mr. Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If this is proper time, I'd like to put my name by HB 239, Representative Abstration's bill about the Georgia Business Courts.
Chairman Fleming.
Mr. Chairman, I was wanting to ask Representative Hawkins a question about his bill,
Okay.
one of his bills. Representative, House Bill 242, the first one that you spoke about, massage therapy. I know that my local government back home had trouble with what I will classify as not legitimate massage therapy places, and we had to enact some local ordinance to correct that situation. And I know there was a bill or two floating out there about that issue. Yours, however, I think is the one that was supported by all the parties involved. It wasn't going to be no problem with those local areas that had tried to regulate bad actors out of the business. Am I correct on that?
You are correct.
Okay, thank you. I just want to clarify that.
Thank you.
Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to put my name beside HB 290 and HB 426.
Chairman Harrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On behalf of Chairman Stevens, under modified structure rule, House Bill 76, this permits local governments to establish certain distance requirements, less restrictive but not more restrictive than the state, with regard to where alcoholic beverages may be sold in relation to a school or university of higher education. Does not impact K-12 schools or religious institutions.
Chairman Fleming has a question.
Chairman Harrell, on that House Bill 76, I was trying to listen closely, and would it be strengthening, may not be the best word, would it be making more restrictive current state law, or opening it up where you could be closer to those entities which you could not be close to earlier?
It allows the local governments to make a determination to lessen the distance requirements in their community in relation to a post-secondary college or university. The issue most recently came about, you may be familiar, but the Savannah College of Art and Design has bought almost every piece of property in Savannah and is doing an outstanding job renovating the community, but as current statute reads, if the local community chose to reduce certain distance requirements so that other businesses could operate, the state statute would prohibit that. So there certainly could be other communities throughout the state that may have a similar instance, but again, we have not modified in any way distance between a K-12 or a church, but only post-secondary and only with the action of the local government.
Thank you, sir.
Leader Tremble, you got a bill or a question or?
I just wanted to, if it's appropriate time, put my name beside a bill.
Sure.
I'd like to put my name beside House Bill 66 under modified open, and under modified structure, House Bill 258 and 281.
What was that last one? Representative Hughley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to remind you about House Bill 66 and also about House Bill 281.
Chairman Knight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask for HB 233. It's under modified structure. Looks to be the fifth one down. This is the Pharmacy Anti-Steering and Transparency Act. I appreciate the support of most in this House. We had over 95, almost 98 signatures on this. It simply prevents pharmacies that are owned by PBMs from poaching patient information for commercial purposes, and preserves patient choice to restrict pharmacies owned by these PBMs and insurers from benefiting from spread, the spread of steering their affiliates' business. That's the one. And then, Mr. Chairman, if I may, you and I spoke of two others that you've mentioned I may want to mention, sir.
Are they on the consideration calendar?
No, sir.
Now let's wait.
Okay.
Dean Smyrie.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add my name to Representative Estration's HB 426, and also would like to request House Bill, add my name to House Bill 281. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Representative Beverly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this appropriate time, I'd like to add my name to House Bill 290 and under modified structural rule HB 258.
Okay. Chairman Martin.
Mr. Chairman, that's left over from Leader Trammell's request. Leader Trammell pressed my button when he needed the microphone.
Mr. Bodie?
Maybe Mr. Bodie needs my microphone.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
When y'all grow up, we need to get all of y'all a microphone.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to ask for HB 258 again. It's at the bottom of the page on the modified structure rules.
Chairman, I'm doing the best I can to control the.
Chairman Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to add my name by House Bill 233. It's one of the worst practices that we are trying to stop that I have seen and come down through interfering with the relationship between the doctor and the patient and their pharmacist and the patient. And I know that House Bill 290 was still under study, but I would like to ask for it. On the radio coming in this morning, they were talking about the terrible HIV infection rate and saying that Georgia has the highest, practically the highest in the country, if not the highest.
All right, round two. Representative Hawkins.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to put my name also by 233. I echo Chairman Cooper's comments on that, and also by 290, and I also echo her comments on that. We have the highest increased rate of HIV in the nation, and without addressing it before and at this time, it will cost this state an untold amount of money to treat these patients.
Mr. Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to put my name by House Bill 193 and House Bill 202, please.
Chairman Hatchett.
Motion.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask this committee and move that we send House Bill 198 that deals with certificate of need back to the committee from whence it came.
Is there a second?
Second.
Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Chairman Ballinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move that we move House Bill 259. It was a companion bill to another bill. Move that back to judicial non-civil.
Is there a second? Hearing no objection, it's so ordered. Leader Burns.
Mr. Chairman, HB 332 is on the intermediate calendar. Representative Meeks' bill, I'd ask that it would be moved back to Ag and Consumer Affairs.
All right, there's a motion second that it be recommitted. I hear no objection, it's so ordered. Okay, let's set the calendar. what we're going to do is we're going to set the calendar for Friday. We're going to set the calendar for Monday. We will not have a rules meeting tomorrow. And when we come in on Monday, we will probably have a supplemental calendar, and we will set the calendar for Tuesday. So for Friday, HB 39. It's on. HB 279. It's on. HB 396. It's on. HB 193. It's on. HB 281. It's on. HB 290. It's on. All right, that's Friday's calendar. Now for Monday. HB 76. It's on. HB 233. It's on. HB 234. It's on. HB 374. It's on. HB 426. It's on. And that's Monday's calendar, and expect a supplemental. But we are adjourned.